It is a scene that has caused countless dog owners across the world to scream out in pure, unadulterated horror. You just picked your dog up from the groomer. They smell like oatmeal, lavender, and $100 of disposable income. 10 minutes into your trail walk, they freeze. They sniff the ground with a terrifying intensity. And then, before you can sprint across the grass to stop them, they drop their shoulder, tilt their head, and grind their neck directly into a rotting, fly-blown deer carcass. They aren't just touching it. They are basking in it. They are wriggling on their back with an expression of pure, unbridled euphoria. To you, it is a biological biohazard that requires immediate quarantine. To your dog, it is the finest luxury perfume on the face of the earth. As humans, our immediate reaction is deep disgust, followed quickly by confusion. Why would an animal that we feed premium kibble, sleeps on a memory foam bed, and watches television with us want to smell like decaying flesh? Is their olfactory system broken? Are they doing it to spite us? Or is there something much darker and far more ancient, wired into the very folds of their canine DNA? Today, we are stepping past our human squeamishness to investigate the bizarre evolutionary psychology of scent rolling. We're going to trace this behavior back to the frozen tundra of the Pleistocene epoch. Look at the brilliant tactical reasons why a wild canine would choose to wear the stench of death, and break down why your domestic couch potato is just following a survival manual written 15,000 years ago. To understand why your cockapoo loves the smell of a dead squirrel, we have to look at the ancestral hardware they inherited. Every domestic dog, from a Chihuahua to a Great Dane, shares a lineage with Canis lupus, the gray wolf. And in the wild, survival isn't about being clean. It's about being invisible. For over a century, field biologists observing wolves noted a recurring behavior. When a wolf encountered a strong, pungent odor, usually carrion, rotting fish, or the feces of a large herbivore, they didn't walk away. They rubbed their muzzle, their neck, and their shoulders into the source until their entire coat was saturated with the smell. The earliest and most widely accepted scientific theory for this is called the scent camouflage hypothesis. In the high-stakes game of apex predation, the element of surprise is everything. Prey animals like deer, elk, and bison have an incredibly acute sense of smell. They can detect the distinct predatory odor of a wolf from hundreds of yards downwind. If a wolf smells like a wolf, the hunt is over before it even begins. But what if the wolf smells like something completely non-threatening? What if they smell like something that is already dead? Or better yet, what if they smell like the prey animal's own herd? To understand the sheer tactical brilliance of scent camouflage, imagine you are an elite undercover operative tasked with infiltrating a heavily guarded high-security fortress. The fortress is surrounded by laser tripwires, motion sensors, and guards with night vision goggles. If you walk up to the front gate wearing your standard military tactical gear and carrying your service weapon, the alarms will sound instantly, and you will be compromised. So, what do? You don't try to run faster than the lasers. Instead, you put on a ghillie suit, a specialized outfit covered in the exact leaves, twigs, and mud of the surrounding forest. You blend perfectly into the background noise of the environment. To the security sensors, you don't look like an intruder. You just look like another bush blowing in the wind. You become invisible by becoming part of the landscape. To a wild wolf, a rotting carcass or a pile of herbivore manure is a biological ghillie suit. By rubbing their neck and shoulders, the areas of the body that lead the charge during a stalk, with the scent of carrion, they are effectively rewriting their tactical signature. When the wind blows toward a herd of deer, the deer's nostrils don't register the terrifying scent of an approaching apex predator. They register the familiar benign scent of the forest floor. The wolf has bypassed the security system by wearing the disguise of the environment. For thousands of years, this ghillie suit kept the wolf pack fed. But as we will see in the next segment, Modern science has discovered that this camouflage theory might only be half of the story. Now, if you present this ghillie suit camouflage theory to many traditional trainers or behaviorists, you might run into a wall of skepticism. And to be completely fair to the old school methodology, they raise an incredibly valid, highly logical counter-argument. The opposing view argues that rolling in dead things has absolutely nothing to do with hiding from prey. Instead, it is an aggressive, overt display of scent marking and territory claiming. The logic behind this theory is simple and deeply rooted in mammalian behavior. Mammals use their bodies to claim ownership of resources. When a dog finds something high in value, like a dead animal packed with fats and proteins, their survival instinct tells them to protect that resource from competitors. From this perspective, the dog isn't trying to absorb the smell of the carcass. They are trying to deposit their own natural pheromones onto the dead animal. Dogs have specialized scent glands located around their face, neck, and the base of their tail. By rubbing these specific areas against the carrion, they are essentially writing a property deed in the language of chemistry. It is a biological flag that screams to any passing scavenger, "This belongs to me. I found it first. My scent is stamped all over it, and if you touch it, you will have to deal with me." This theory carries immense authority because we see dogs use urine and ground scratching to mark property lines every single day. For decades, it was argued that scent rubbing was simply a variation of this dominant behavior. It portrays the dog as a confident, resource-guarding strategist. If you want to keep other predators away from your prize, you wrap your own identity around it. It's a compelling narrative that fits perfectly into what we thought we knew about pack hierarchy and resource control. It is a cohesive theory, but modern canine ethology has highlighted a massive physical flaw in this logic. If a dog wanted to leave their scent on an object, they would brush against it lightly or mark it with urine. But when a dog rolls in carrion, they don't leave a light trace. They writhe, they grind, and they compress their fur until they are dripping with the substance. They aren't trying to leave a calling card, they are trying to collect data. To discover the true reason behind the roll, we have to look at a groundbreaking series of studies conducted by Pat Goodman, the head curator at Wolf Park in Indiana. Goodman spent years observing how wild canids interact with novel and pungent odors, and her discoveries completely flipped the script on canine communication. Goodman discovered that scent rolling isn't a hunting tactic or an act of dominance. It is the canine equivalent of an information center. When a foraging wolf encounters a carcass deep in the woods, they don't just eat it. They roll in it, coating their face, neck, and shoulders. Then, they travel miles back to the communal den. The moment they arrive, the rest of the packmates don't growl or run away from the smell. Instead, they mob the returning wolf, intensely sniffing and licking the exact spots where the scent was rubbed. Within minutes, a strange phenomenon occurs. The rest of the pack tracks the exact scent trail backward through the forest, navigating straight to the source of the food. To understand the mind-bending nature of this behavior, imagine you are a corporate scout working for a massive global logistics company. Your job is to travel out into unknown, uncharted territories to find new resources, supplies, or investment opportunities for your team back at headquarters. One afternoon, deep in a remote region, you stumble upon a massive, forgotten warehouse filled to the ceiling with high-value gold bullion. It's a jackpot. But you don't have a smartphone, you don't have a pen, and you don't have a GPS tracker to map the coordinates. You have to get back to headquarters and tell your team exactly where this treasure is located. So, what do? Before you leave the warehouse, you take a heavy, highly distinct, specialized industrial oil from the floor and smear it all over your jacket, your face, and your shoes. When you walk back into the corporate boardroom, you don't say a word. You don't have to. Your colleagues smell the specific chemical makeup of that industrial oil on your clothes. Because they are experts in geography, that smell acts as a literal map. They scan the unique chemical signature, cross-reference it with their knowledge of the region, and instantly know exactly which warehouse you visited. Your dirty jacket isn't a mess. It's a detailed corporate memo. To a pack of wild wolves, your dog's putrid neck is that corporate memo. The carcass smell is a physical, undeniable receipt that says, "Attention everyone, I found a major resource 3 miles northeast of here. Gather around, read the data on my fur, and let's go harvest the prize." But there is one final, purely psychological layer to this gross truth. Beyond camouflage and beyond pack communication, there is a simpler, beautifully human reason why your dog rolls in dead things: sensory hedonism. As humans, our primary sense is sight. We love bright colors, high-definition displays, and beautiful art. If we see a gorgeous sunset, we pause, pull out our phones, and try to capture it. We seek out visual stimulation because it triggers a rush of dopamine in our brains. But your dog lives in a universe of scent. To a canine, a highly complex, decomposing organic odor isn't a stink. It is a masterpiece of sensory data. It is a symphony of chemical notes. Rolling in it is the olfactory equivalent of a human wrapping themselves in a luxurious cashmere blanket or staring at a beautiful painting. It triggers an explosion of pleasure centers in their ancient brain. They are doing it simply because it feels incredible. So, knowing that this behavior is fueled by thousands of years of evolutionary history and an intense dopamine reward, how do we protect our white carpets and our sanity? The secret is catching the pre-roll launch. A dog never drops into a roll without warning. There is a very specific, highly predictable behavior sequence that happens first. First, you will see the intense sniff. Their nose will glue itself to a single patch of grass. Next comes the head tilt. They will slowly tilt their ear toward the ground. Finally, they will drop their shoulder. The moment you see that head tilt, the window of opportunity is open. You cannot override this 15,000-year-old instinct by yelling, "No!" Instead, you must outbid the resource. Use a rock-solid, highly practiced leave it cue and reward them with a high-value, high-scent treat like freeze-dried liver or cheese. You have to make the reward in your hand more compelling than the ghillie suit on the ground. When my dog dropped his shoulder into that deer carcass years ago, I didn't understand the science. I just saw a massive, expensive mess. But looking back through the lens of ethology, I realized he wasn't trying to ruin my evening. He was just an elite scout trying to bring a scented memo back to his pack. Your dog isn't broken, and they aren't filthy. They are just historical time capsules, running ancient survival software in a modern suburban world. If your dog has ever brought home a scented memo of their own, let me know the details in the comments below. Let's commiserate over the worst things our pups have ever worn. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and follow the Decoded Dog community for more deep dives into the hidden brilliance of our pets. I'm Marcus, and I'll see you on the next trail.